Hey, hi. Okay, what's up, guys? Today's Sunday. I think we're on video 190, 187 right now. So, like, we're doing well. It's not a nice sprint. Just a month ago, we were at, like, I think video 100, a month and a half ago. But all right, let's do this. Today's video is a bit cute. We're finalizing the whole empathy thingy, but I'm finalizing it in a very, actually, no. We're not finalizing it. I did two videos on empathy. So my logic was today I was thinking about something else to do. But then I figured whatever I talk about right now is going to be stuff that I already had thought about the past 3, 4 days or that I mentioned before. So right now, as I'm saying this, I remembered the discussion I had with myself earlier, where it's like if I do a video on this, it's basically repeating the same thing but in a different sense, and it feels like I need to like let it simmer a bit in my mind in order for me to be able to kind of like push for the next step of how I actually feel or see and understand it. Because the articulation part requires a certain connection and to strengthen that connection between what I learned and it's basically the experience of like explaining it. So if I do it now, I'm not really like elaborating on something new. I'm elaborating on something. And it's not like it's something that happened now. It's something that happened in the past. It's kind of like reforming in itself in its mind. So I want it to kind of like be accepted the way it is. And then for me to be able to like start utilizing it and utilizing its existence into the future. So, and I think that's a very empathetic view. I think it's a very empathetic view on things. So, but I was having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and it's funny because, like, we we met, we talked for a minute. She used to be at the place where I used to work, and we never used to speak back then. I just used to nod my head and say hi because everyone let them do their own thing. And I saw her at the coffee shop that I go work at right now because in the new spot I still don't have a specific place where I work. Although I think by tomorrow things are going to start changing, or after tomorrow. So what happened is when I saw her, I asked her what she does. She's a business consultant, which is amazing because I'm studying business administration. And she asked me what I did, and then it clicked because like over the past 3 weeks, I've been considering when people ask me what do I do, what do I tell them? So I looked her straight in the eye, and I was like, no, I'm building a platform that's gonna allow a network to be built using to be connected using entities at the core. And still it does not flow properly in me because there's something not missing, there's something yet to complete it, yet to complete it. At the core, what I'm doing is this: my goal, my vision is to gamify society. My ultimate like mission is to kind of like my ultimate vision, sorry, my mission is to gamify society. My vision is to decentralize governments and use actual entities as the base of their endeavors, because it's where they actually like get their bread and butter. But so I was talking to her, and she was like, anytime you have a thought, and we were discussing like I forgot, like, we were talking about whole lots of things, and talking to me kind of like sets you in a certain flow. You can't if you're if you're planning to kind of tell me stuff that aren't really like solid in your day. And the way I mean it is, if whatever we're going to be talking about something that's designed specifically for certain interactions and it's not really a genuine approach from how you see the world, whoever's talking to me is going to have a frustrating time. And I'm perfectly fine with that. Especially since like she asked me for coffee. So like me and her were sitting and having a conversation. Beautiful soul, beautiful woman, amazing. But so she asked me on, we connected. I connected with her on LinkedIn. She messaged me with to tell her more about what I did. I specified the things that I do. I'm a web developer. I'm a business analyst as well, and I used to be an entrepreneur. I still am. I have a startup that I'm working on. And then I looked at her and I'm like, basically I build websites and I analyze stuff. And I asked her about her philosophy of society, and she got intrigued, and she wanted to kind of discuss more. So I told her, let's hang out, and she said sure, and then we hung out. And that's more of a one-on-one kind of like setting where like we actually want to talk about stuff, not not just like, how are you? How's life? It's not a social, I don't know. It was good. I had tea and we had wine. It was a good time. And I met a guy that plays in a band over there, and he taught me something about the guitar. So I'm also excited to start applying that on my daily routine. And he gave me advice on how to approach the actual fretboard and how to kind of level up with it. And that was beautiful because like I kind of like needed something to humble me, because the problem is most of the time when you realize that you know something, it doesn't really mean that it sinks in your head. And so when you know something to be true, it doesn't really mean that your whole body synchronizes with it, your whole mind synchronizes with it, and your whole kind of like soul accepted it as a part of you. But so he taught me that. In our conversation, man, we were discussing thinking. And the first thing, she basically were discussing how people think in critical thinking. And I told her about my philosophy of thought. And my philosophy of thought is assessment, analysis, and reflection. And the assessment is, what am I doing? And the analysis is, how am I doing it? And the reflection is, why am I doing it? And once you ask how, what, and then how, and then why, you basically go back to the same, like, all right, so like, what exactly am I doing? And if you ask that question after you answer the why, what you get is a different answer to the same thing that you started with earlier. And that for me is how your mind processes a thought, because it starts somewhere and it goes through, what are you doing? How are you doing it? Why is it relevant? Why are you doing it? Why is it important? Why does it matter? Why does it impact your day? All these are relevant for, like, why the fuck am I wasting my time on this? And then the minute you finish that, you go like, so what am I doing? Oh, I'm doing this. Okay. Suddenly it shifts. And we can use this as an exercise sometime in the future, but sometime somebody has to like kind of like point in my direction. But ultimately, when the what changes, the first thing you will have to do is ask how. Are you planning on doing it, or how are you doing the what? And then basically, the minute you approach it with a thought, you realize that you're approaching the how now in a different way because the what has changed. And then ultimately, you reach the why. And then when you ask yourself why, you go back. And until the time where the three are repeating themselves as answers, that means you have isolated the truth behind how you are viewing this thought slash idea and slash concept. By doing it my way, the way I see it, and the way I just explaining it, what effectively are you doing is you're bringing out the minutest of details to the surface for your entire body, mind, and your spirit to synchronize with its existence in your reality. And when that becomes a profound, deep understanding, it becomes way too simple for you to reference it. Which means if every thought goes through this process, eventually this process becomes automatic. You don't have to ask for it. And then eventually these thoughts become ideas a lot faster, because normally ideas are a combination of thoughts, and then these ideas become concepts way faster, and then these concepts they become the behaviors, and the behaviors turn into the actions, and the actions are basically the manifestation of your intention in society. Yay! It's actually an article that I've been writing on. But it's funny because like today I went back to this article, and yesterday I had this conversation. So it's funny how everything starts rhyming once you're actually in a certain flow. What she mentioned was 8 minutes, 55 minutes. So what she mentioned was, like, anytime you have an idea or you're doing something towards an idea, the first thing you get is resistance. And the second thing you get is judgment, or I don't know if they're first, second, and third. But then you have the resistance part, and you have the judgment part, and you have the attachment part. All of them are basically your insecurity. So regardless of what your insecurity is, you're resisting something. And if you isolate this from the beginning, you go like, okay, so I want to do this. What would I resist before I actually take a step? What am I judging before I take a step? And what am I attached to before I take a step? And it's funny because each one of these three right now, the minute I mention them out loud, could happen separately and halt your progress, or could happen at the same time and halt your progress in the exact same way. It really doesn't fucking matter. If you find out that you have resistances, it doesn't mean like you sorted yourself out and you have to take a step forward. No, you have to sort out any potential resistance, judgment, or attachment. Again, you might not have any judgment at all, but if you risk moving forward because one of these things is neglected, then the chances are you're going to think you're moving forward, but the reality you're circling around the same spot, just looking at things differently while still not actually taking the leap that everyone talks about. And then when we got into this discussion, man, it kind of like it made things in a much cuter way. It's the approach, because like ultimately something's it's in your head, and then it becomes in your behavior, and then it becomes the change. And now, as I'm mentioning this to you, this is basically the actual the behavioral part. Because where you like first, I'm thinking about this thought, and it makes sense, but then like when I'm transferring this thought to something that I do, it has to kind of like combine with a whole lot of things that have already been established. And each one of them is going to have an issue. Why? Simply because it's something new. And as we translate our actions, as we translate our thoughts into behaviors, and then eventually to like significant actions that impact our reality, what effectively we're doing is we're kind of like what we're doing is we're smoothing the road, resistance. We're allowing ourselves to be neutral in our observation, lacking judgment. And as we flow, we can't be attached to something, because anything we're attached to slows us down. So there's the resistance, that friction that we get. And then there's the attachments that we have to let go, the weights. And then there's the judgment, because I don't want to decide where I'm going. And I think I could end this in a way where, first things first, like I love this thought process, because that's something I'm definitely going to be thinking about for the next week. So I'm going to keep it open, and I'm not going to scratch it as a video done, because this could be a video on its own. But snowboarders, that Canadian snowboarders, as they're like going down like rocky hills, they tend to kind of enjoy the thrill of diving in between trees. And effectively, if you're looking at trees and as you're going down, you're going to direct yourself and hit a tree. But if you're only looking at the path between the trees, it's funny because like there was a YouTube video of a guy saying, "Look at the trees." As I'm looking at the YouTube video, and he's going down the snowboard, and what you start seeing automatically is trees, and then kind of like a maze in front of you. But when he says, "Look at the path, that space between the trees," and you see the space performing a path. So I think that's where our judgment kind of like, if we judge, we're going to see the trees and make a decision. But if we don't judge, we're following a path and kind of like trusting ourselves. And so amazing. That's a conversation that happened yesterday. Fuck man, that was 12 minutes, 13 minutes. I don't know how that happened. Amazing.